and welcome to another tutorial. So today we are learning all about how to knit a very basic blanket. As you saw in the thumbnail, it's a fun, colorful blanket using the Lion brand softball yarn. And I'm gonna go slow, so this is gonna be very beginner friendly. So if all you're looking for is the instructions, head down below and you can visit the link to either purchase the PDF or get the baby blanket size on my blog for free. Within the PDF, there are 6 different sizes, just so you're aware. So today what we're gonna cover is how to cast on. We're going to talk about how to do the actual knit stitch. We're gonna talk about changing colors because there are 4 different colors in this blanket, and then also how to cast off. I'm also going to show you how I weave in my ends to ensure that nothing comes out after a wash. So if you want to do this along with me, head below and look at the instruction list for everything that you're gonna need, and then hop back into the video and we will do this together. So as I stated at the beginning, what I'm going to teach you today is just the basics of how to do this blanket. So I'm gonna be moving slow. I'm trying to appeal to all my crocheters to knitters and my very newbie knitters. So to begin, we're going to do what is called a long tail cast on. And so we're just going to pull out just a little bit for this because again, we're just doing like a little swatch, but I'll give instructions and the details for how to get the approximate length. And what you'll need to do is you have your tail on your right side, you have your working yarn on your left, and if you don't know what working yarn is, it's the yarn that we're pulling from the actual yarn ball itself. So we've got tail on the right, working yarn on the left, and what we're going to do is make a slip knot. So take those 2 yarns, kind of make a little loop and pinch them between your fingers. Take your pinchers, come in from behind the loop, kind of insert them like so. Do 1 twist and go down and pick up that tail of a yarn. And then that's how you make your loop. And I'll do it one more time just so you can see. Tail over here, working yarn over here. Pinch, insert your pinchers, twist 1 time, bend down, pick up the tail, and just kind of pull it. And there you go. So then we're gonna take our needles. Now, I like to use circular needles mainly because I don't always have long bouts of time to sit and just knit my little heart away as much as I would like to. So it makes it easy whenever I can put it on a circular needle and just kind of keep the project down here. I don't have to worry about anything slipping off. If all you have is straight needles, just make sure whenever you're setting your project to the side, you put it somewhere where it's not gonna come undone, or you make sure that you're totally finished with a row and then you just like bunch it all down on your needles so nothing comes off. I've had that happen way too many times. So I'm taking my circular needles and making sure that my tail is kind of towards the front of me and the working yarn is towards the back. I insert my needle into that little slip knot that we made. So now what we're going to do, whoop, I just pulled that right off. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our hand and we're gonna make kind of like a little L shape or a little gun, if you will. And we're going to stick our fingers in between the tail and the working yarn. And then we're gonna grab those 2 with our last 2 fingers, okay? So just kind of grab it like this. Now this is called casting on, so pay very close attention, okay? We're going to go under, around, and through. Then let those go and pull your 2 tails. And just don't pull super tight, but just kind of make sure everything is somewhat nice and neat right there at the top. I'm gonna do that again. Make your gun and go under, around, and through. And then pull tight. Do it again. Under, around, and through. And again, just kind of stop and check your stitches. Make sure one loop's not way down here. Everything's looking nice and even, okay? And then just keep going. Make your little gun again. Under, around, and through. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 2 more times. Under, around, and through. Just like that. And one more time. Under, around, and through. Just like that. So depending on the size blanket that you're going to make for this pattern, if you're making a baby size, you would want to cast on, do what we just did as many times as it says, or if you're making a larger one, you want to follow those instructions. So since we're just making a swatch, I'm just going to cast on just a few more. And obviously I'm going a lot faster, so back up the video if you need a little bit more practice. And don't get frustrated with yourself if you do need more practice. It's totally okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we leave a long enough tail, 1 to weave in and 2 to secure with the first stitch. Now, the beautiful thing about this blanket is you only need to know 1 knitting stitch, and that is the knit stitch. So what you will begin by doing is, I want you to remember that knitting is always taking from the left and putting on to the right. Taking from the left, putting on to the right. Okay, so the knit stitch is very, very, very simple. I'm trying to pull out some more yarn for myself here because it keeps getting tight. So the knit stitch is very, very simple. All we're going to do is we're going to take our needle, we're going to insert it. So if you look and see, I'm literally touching my needle, my right needle to my left needle. I'm pushing it kind of under and behind. So if you look, they're both in the same loop, okay? So I'm going to push it in, kind of like push behind. So if I do it again, you're gonna see I'm going to push behind. So we're kind of making a cross with left over right. Then to secure our first stitch, we're going to grab our working yarn and our tail. So we're going to treat these as just one string. So once that's in there, and a little side note, I do recommend working with bamboo needles when you're a beginner because there's less slippiness and slidiness with the aluminum needles. So just a little tip. So once you have your needle inserted, you're going to take your tail and your working yarn, treating them as one strand. And this is where it gets tricky, crocheters, because you're using 2 hands to do this. You're going to take your left hand and you're going to hold the needles in place. Taking your right hand, we're going to throw the yarn like that. Okay, so if you look and see, here we are. I'm taking those strands, treating them as one, and I'm throwing my yarn around like that. Okay, I'm still holding them in my hand, holding them secure. Then I'm going to take my needle, making sure that these are nice and secure, and I'm just gonna slide it up. So my needle, my right needle, is always in contact with my left. Okay, so if you look, I'm literally just going, sliding it up like that, and then I'm sliding that stitch off, and you literally just made your first knit stitch. So every stitch thereafter, we're only going to use the working yarn. The reason we did that is just because it takes that tail and it takes that first stitch and it just locks it in place, so we don't have to worry about that coming loose. And now we're gonna do the next one. So it's the exact same thing. Look at your loop, take your right needle, kind of touch your left needle. We're gonna slide it behind, okay? Slide it behind, you're crisscrossing. Take your left hand and secure your needles as you get ready to throw your yarn. So you're taking your working yarn and you're just wrapping it around just like that. And then holding it tight, sliding it back up and over. And you made your second stitch. And right there we can see our little stockinette V is beginning to form, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to show you again on 2 more stitches. So we're going to take our needle, they're gonna touch. We're going to slide it behind. With our left hand, we're gonna hold our needles. We're gonna take our right hand and we're gonna throw our yarn around. Then we're gonna slide, never losing contact, and slide that stitch right off. And then do it one more time slowly for you. Making contact, sliding underneath, holding securely, throwing our yarn, coming back forth, and sliding right off. So obviously this is a little swatch, but as you can see, once you get going, you move a little bit faster. My hands are sweaty, so that makes me not move quite as fast. So once you get going, you just keep moving along. Whoops, and if that happens, just be careful. Slip it right back on, not a big deal. Keep going to the last stitch. And there you go. So that row is totally done. So we switch again, we come back, and all we're gonna do is repeat that same process. We're just knitting this row. So every single row is knit, and another name for this stitch is called the garter stitch. So if you've ever seen a knitting book or a pattern and it calls for the garter stitch, all that means is both sides, right and wrong, are just knit stitches all the way across. It's just a fancier way to describe it. So again, we're just knitting those stitches. Very simple and straightforward, knitting those stitches. And this is such a good design to, one, have a reward at the end of a finished blanket, and then two, really get in the hang of how the knit stitch feels and how it should look. And then also too, if you're a crocheter to knitter, you will really get a feel for utilizing 2 needles versus 1 hook. That was the biggest hurdle for me to get over, but I promise you, you'll be really glad you did it. So on this row 2, remember we hooked together our working yarn and our tail, so it looks like there's 2 stitches, but we treat those as one, and we knit both of those together, and then everything is nice and secure. So all you do back and forth, every row for every color, you're simply just knitting. So let's say you want to add in a new color. Not a problem. Since we're making ourselves a little swatch here, we're gonna cut us a tail long enough to be able to sew it in nice and secure. We're just gonna let that hang out, okay? Now we're gonna take our new color that we want to use, and we're going to not make a loop, but we're just gonna kind of act like we're making a loop. So as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 inches of a loop, 5 inches on both sides. So it's approximately 10 inches total that I've pulled out. And here's what I'm gonna do. So I've got that ready to go. I'm going to get like I'm getting ready to knit my stitch. I'm gonna insert my hook, and I'm gonna take this new yarn and I'm gonna wrap it. Again, I did make a loop. We're just pretending like we're going to. And I'm just gonna pull that up. And again, you'll have to kind of pull things tight here in the beginning because you're just first, putting this on. So you you insert your needle into the next stitch, and leaving the tail, you'll work it with just the working yarn. And again, things are gonna kind of be loose here in the beginning, but we'll go back and fix that. And you just insert, and as you move yourself along, because the yarns are becoming woven together, they become more and more secure. So when you go to weave in your ends, this is typically what I like to do. Once I get a few stitches in, I just take these 2 right here, the one that I snipped from the previous color and the tail from the new color, and I just gently kind of tie them together, kind of get a feel for exactly where they are. And I just do a simple little knot, still leaving them long because we're gonna weave them in later. And once those are secure, after, like I said, I do a few stitches and we get all those secure, it's totally smooth sailing after that. So really, really simple. Somebody had asked me on Instagram, oh, is it hard to change colors? It's really not. I think that oftentimes we try to convince ourselves that something is a lot more challenging than it actually is. And I assured her, absolutely not. This is totally, totally doable. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do another row of this blue, and then I'm gonna show you how to cast off. So let me add one more row of blue and then I'll pop back on and show you how to cast off. So here we are again, and I did one more row of the blue, and now I'm gonna show you, and if we were all done, how we would take this off the needles. And it's really simple. So we're gonna start by knitting this first stitch, just like normal. So we're gonna knit the stitch, and then we're going to knit the next stitch. And after we knit that next stitch, we're gonna go back to the first stitch that we did. We're gonna grab it with our needle, and we're gonna bring it up and over the stitch. So we just closed off that very first stitch. And I'll show you that again. So you knit the next stitch, then the stitch right before, right here, you take your needle, insert it under, and just bring it over that stitch, and you closed off another stitch. Do that again, into your needle, knit it, reach back here, and pull it up and over your knit stitch. Insert it again, up and over your knit stitch. And it's literally like that all the way across. Just knit the stitch, reach back, pull up that, and pull it right over. Knit the stitch, reach back, pull it up and over. Knit, reach back, pull it up and over. And as you can see, here's my little swatch. It's coming off nice, neat, and clean and crisp. Knit the next one, reach back, pull it up and over, knit, reach back, whoops, reach back, pull it up and over, knit, reach back, pull it up and over, knit the last one, reach back, pull it up and over. And then at this point, we'll cut ourselves a little tail, and we will yarn that over, and kind of, it's a little hard to do with that last one, but pull it, well, if you need to grab a hook, feel free, just pull it all the way through like that. And at this point, you would be ready to weave in your ends, do your tag, all of that fun stuff, gift it to a friend, use it for yourself. And there you go. And just so you know, in case there's any confusion, as you're switching colors, you will kind of see this on one side won't have that. So the side that doesn't have that, you could call it your right side. And the side that has that, you could call it your wrong side. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. You also don't have to change colors. You could do this all in one solid color and it would still be super, super cute. I absolutely love this softball yarn. It is so squishy, and I will say that the drape is amazing on the blanket. I really, really love it. I really love the fun, vibrant colors. If you're more of a neutrals gal, this one isn't for you. But if you like fun, vibrant colors, or you're making something for a kid, they will definitely love it. So I hope that this was a good tutorial for my beginners or people who are wanting to try knitting. I hope that this project inspires you to give it a try, not be afraid. And yes, so if you want the details to the free child size pattern, that is for free on my blog. All the other 6 sizes, including the child size on the blog, will be linked in my Etsy shop as a PDF available for purchase. So again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.